This is Marcus Whitney's audio universe.
Like, you gotta do the work. You gotta show up and just do the work.
What's good? Happy Wednesday, another episode of Marcus Whitney Live. And this is an episode I have been working on lining up for a long time. So for anybody who knows what I do, I'm in the venture capital business. There are not a lot of people out there who look like me in the venture capital business, unfortunately. But there are some incredibly impressive, powerful people that look like me in this business. And my guest today is one of, I think, the most important ones in terms of how she didn't just enter the industry and start writing checks, but she used her voice from day one and has built up this understanding and this awareness around the opportunity that is there, you know, not just about it being a social movement, but about the economic upside of investing in these underrepresented founders. And she also just published a book before mine that's fantastic. And so we're going to talk about that, her podcast, everything she's been doing in investing. So without further ado, I'm super excited to have Arlan Hamilton on the show today. Arlan, what is good?
Hey, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So just quickly, let's jump in and talk a little bit about your background and how you went from, you know, food stamps to like being probably one of the most visible venture capitalists of color in the United States today. How did you do that?
Well, that's, yeah. How much time do you have? Yeah, I've been working on Backstage as, you know, in different iterations for about 9 years now that I think about it. We're actually celebrating our 5th year official anniversary, September 15th. And, you know, it's just day to day. You know, your intro says it all. You got to show up and do the work. That's what we've been doing. It's what I've been doing since day one. And I think it's just everything. I talk about my life and everything that happens between the Instagram posts. What happens between the headlines. That's where the real stuff happens, where the real content happens. And it was just like having this unwavering understanding and conviction about what I wanted to do.
Yep. And
then understanding that it was okay to fail. It was okay to not have a good day or a good week or a good year. As long as I could keep that North Star in front of me. That's what did it. So it's a lot of that went into it, and that's why I wanted to write the book.
So what was it about venture capital specifically? Usually people don't just kind of get right to that. For me, I started as a software developer and then moved from software development into entrepreneurship, and then, you know, got exposed to venture capital. I don't want to say that you skipped any stages or anything like that, but you knew what you wanted to do very early in this process. So like, how did you even get that visibility?
I didn't skip a step. I actually had several steps added on to my journey, but I really love when the operator who has been in the trenches becomes an investor, whether that's a venture capitalist or an angel investor or syndicate investor. It's to me, that is just technicalities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The reason is point blank. I didn't have any money of my own. I was broke. I had lived in poverty for most of my life. And I wanted to accomplish this thing. And this thing needed a lot of capital. To, you know, I called myself for the first 2 or 3 years of it, the bootstrap VC, which is almost impossible to do. It was before all of these things were put in place. And I dare say, and I'm going to follow my own advice that I say in my book, I'm going to dare say that some of this stuff that's come out recently with like rolling funds and things like that, I think I had a lot to do with the sentiment of and inspiration of. But this was before that. So I kind of had to hack and find my way to it. So I said, I wasn't like really excited about the venture capital part. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I want to be a venture capitalist. It was that I wanted to get resources and just made a bubble. That was weird. I just want to get resources and funding to underrepresented, underestimated founders, as Nina Simone says, by hook or by crook. And this was how I did it. This was the research I put in and the different options I saw. I knew I wanted to be early stage because that's what I felt I had the most effect and the most influence, and it was going to align most with my aspirations. And so I said, well, that takes out this whole Wall Street, public market thing that wasn't really going to work. I would have loved to come on the scene as an angel investor, would have, have had some sort of success or had some sort of family capital and started there, but I didn't have that. And I knew that, just like the book is called It's About Damn Time, I knew that the time was of the essence, because I knew that it was going to take a while for it to work and for it to stick. And so I couldn't just wait a few years to catch up to it, right? And so all of the research I did, I said, you know what? If these other guys over here, and it was mostly guys and mostly white men, I said, if they can pull this together, I can do that. I can figure this out too. There's no rocket science happening over here. And if I can just stick with it, I think I can make this happen.
Yeah. I love the part about you knew that time was of the essence. And so you hacked your way. One of the things when I read your story, even before the book, just reading the different articles and things that had come up about you, and knowing that you didn't have that initial seed money to do this, you didn't have that win behind you yet, you didn't have those things, but you knew they weren't necessary. You know what I mean? Like you knew at the end of the day, if you put yourself out there and you worked hard and you had the conversations and you sold the story, and I think so many people don't understand that venture capital is a business, and actually launching a fund is an entrepreneurial effort, and you were just an entrepreneur at the end of the day. The business you're in happened to be early stage venture capital, but you were hustling.
Right. The product was capital. The customers were founders. And in fact, I made a decision, a very distinct decision. I was going to start another company, and I had to make a decision. Which one am I going to do? I'm going to start this other company that's like me starting a company, probably doing well, probably able to raise a lot because I had figured out the system.
Yeah.
Or do I go this other route and start a company, but the company is in the business of investing in other companies? And that was a very distinct and very intentional decision I made.
So let's take a second and talk about the book, maybe more than a second. At what point in your journey did you feel you had enough valid experience worth putting into a book? And also, did you feel compelled, I need to get this book out into the world?
Yeah, it was much like a product, a good product. You listen to the market, you listen to the market appetite. And that was just very clear to me starting in mid 2018. It became very clear to me that there was a bit of information I could put together in one place that would be helpful to a lot of people, and that people were asking for that. And so that became in the forum of people saying, can you be my mentor? Can I pick your brain? Can I do office hours? And it was in the hundreds of people in any given month asking that question. And it was just over and over and over again. And on top of that, I had started getting publishers reaching out to me asking if they could, take my book deal or offer me a book deal. And I wasn't interested in any of the ones that reached out, but it was mostly because I was like, it'll happen in its right time. So I don't want to be like just taking any opportunity that comes my way, because I say no to so much that people probably don't realize. And then it was like finding that sort of that understanding within myself that I did have something to offer. It was like coming into my own and like realizing, wait a second, people go put themselves through school and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn what I just put myself through the last 6 years or 7 years at that point. And I can put that together in a $20 book and so make it so accessible to people. And that was really exciting to me. So that is when it was summer of 2018. where Franklin Leonard, who is the founder of Blacklisted, or Blacklist, sorry, the Blacklist, in the entertainment world. He has an amazing story himself. You should interview him. He's a really interesting guy.
Okay,
but
on the list.
He's a Black guy who used to like work for Leonardo DiCaprio, and he would read scripts for him, and he realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm reading so many scripts for him that are all from like white men, and they're not really diverse, and 90% of these are not going to see the light of day. Let me see if I can start a list of like really diverse from all over. It doesn't have to, it doesn't matter where it's from, but all over. And that went on to be like Oscar-winning movies came from that list that just started as a newsletter.
Wow.
And so he got in touch with me and he started introducing me to people in LA. And that's when I said, the people he introduced me to, I was comfortable doing a book with and for.
Got it. And the part about the $20 and how accessible it is, having gone through the process of now writing this book, you realize what a steal it is for someone to be able to get, this wisdom and this information.
Right.
It's hard won. Yeah.
It's like music, like people who balk at the idea of paying for music. It's like, do you know what went into creating an album and you're going to pay $14 and cry about it? Whoa. But you're absolutely right. And it's, I mean, why do you think that is? Like, why do you say that?
Well, I mean, so your book has been out a couple more months than me. So you're a little bit ahead of me, but let me just sort of tell you what I'm experiencing at the moment, right? The thing that I'm experiencing at the moment is people that I don't know, that didn't know me before the book, but somehow found out about the book through a friend or through some, I don't know, AppSumo or whatever, right? And then are reaching out and are saying, wow, this thing that you wrote really clarified this thing I had been struggling with. And just when I think back on my own journey that was too often, not only, but too often void of mentors, you know what I mean? And how many times I ran into brick walls to learn the stuff I wrote in this book, you know what I mean? And I'm reading yours and I could tell it's like, you earned every bit of wisdom that's in that book. And that stuff it's hard. And so I just think for anyone to be able to spend $20 to get wisdom that people bled for, you can't even. It's just an incredible deal, and I love how you equated it to music because it is very similar.
It is blood, sweat, and tears, and it's just something that you can't even. There is no price to it because of the way certain sentences or certain chapters are hitting people a certain way, and it's like, wow, if that chapter, which it has done because they've told me, unlocks what you're supposed to do for the next 10 years of your life. Wow. There's no amount of therapy, there's no amount of conventions, any of that can beat the price pound for pound. Now, the hope is you don't just read it and consume it. The hope is that you do something about it. And that was hopefully the fire that was lit in the book as well. So it sounds like our two books are like a complement to each other. Say the name of your book again.
Create and Orchestrate.
Create and Orchestrate.
Yeah.
And where can people get that?
Amazon. I'm selling signed copies on my website. Look at you, helping me sell on my own show.
Hey, man, I have the book. I bought the book myself. I pre-ordered it, and it's great. I love the way that you're publishing it.
Thank you. Well, I have your book as well, and I just I honestly when I found out that you were doing your book and I had just finished my manuscript and I knew I was on the process, I just felt like it was an alignment of what's happening in the space right now, that there is this class of people who have accumulated this body of experience and now are able to share it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And to me, that was actually pretty significant. I think the world of what you've accomplished, and just that I was able to get my book out in that same time frame, it just made me feel like, okay, this is good. This is a sign that it is about damn time, that it is, that we have moved things forward. So let me ask you about the progress that you feel like you've seen in this space, right? So, since the time that you've come along and you've been everywhere, you've been hustling and doing this stuff outside of just Backstage Capital and what you've accomplished. How are you feeling about the overall movement, right, of people of color and women in the capital space, in the capital allocation space?
I think about the movement before I think about Backstage every single day.
Yeah.
You know, we're a part of it. And some days we're leading the charge. Some days we're just sitting back and observing and with pride. Sometimes we're like trying to burn stuff down. I think it's like a jagged, you know, line. It's nothing linear. It doesn't go hockey stick. Progress. It's like you see some progress and you see some like real slide backs, you know, and then you see some just incredible things happen. I just think what the main thing I try to make sure we all do is, if we can, is like it's like not be the boiling frog and not remember how different things were.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see a lot of people say, "Man, you're too optimistic, or you give too much credit to progress or to these certain people or this or that." And I'm just like, if we don't give credit where it may be due, what are we doing here? Like what are we trying to achieve if we're not going to give credit to the even the small things that have happened? I'm not here to like give somebody a parade or pat them on the back for just showing up and being exactly what they're supposed to be. Like, I'm not going to clap for you because you didn't say a racial slur to me.
Right.
You treated me with some respect. That's not going to be it. So it's not like that, but it's like if somebody can change the way that they've been talking and the way they've been thinking about things, and it's for the better. Can we acknowledge that without getting canceled, you know, or without being called a sellout or something like that? So I look at it like that. I also look at it like there is so much work still to be done. I don't know that we get to this promised land anytime soon, but we have to go towards it. And I think right now what would be probably a really good idea is for a lot of us to get together, because there are actually quite a few Black investors now.
No question.
It's changed a lot in the last 10 years, you know? I think we should get together and really outline what change is, what success is.
Sign me up.
There's like a lot of, I think there are a lot of like groups that are forming, and that's cool. Collaboration is awesome, but yeah, I just wonder about that sometimes. I feel like, what are we fighting for? What do we really want success to be? It can't be. I tell you what, it can't be. It can't be 20 of us Black investors getting rich.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not. What? Yeah. So you just said something super important to me. Is you didn't exactly say this, but to me, succession planning, you know, not just inspiring other people to do it, but that legacy, the mentorship that you do, but actually developing that next generation and that next class of investors, is massive, because I don't blame the generation that came before us, because as far as I can tell, they were locked out of these opportunities to a degree that we, quite frankly, were not. You know what I mean?
For sure. That's why we're able to be here.
That's right. You know, but I don't want to somehow misconstrue that experience that I had as what is required of me in this moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
we can be better. We can do better.
Absolutely. No better, do better.
You want your kids to have more than you did, and to do better than you and be better than you are. And that's how I look at it.
Yes, for sure. So you were talking about the tons of inbound that you were getting. I do remember you had a course. I'm not sure if you still do, but I remember that you had put together a course, and I know that you now have a podcast.
I've always had a podcast.
Okay.
It's just been, this is a new one.
Okay. Yeah. So the podcast, Your First Million, that is the current one, right?
That's the current one. That's what I started that in summer 2019.
Okay. So talk about that. Talk about Your First Million.
Your First Million. Yeah. I love Your First Million because it really makes me feel like an entrepreneur in every way. And kind of the way that I guess everything I do makes me feel like one, but this makes me feel like one in a way that is very like authentic to me. in that it's just like like I had a chance to sell the idea or whatever early on before it even launched. Somebody wanted to say, okay, we'll produce that for you. We'll give you this amount of money, 6 figures, it's going to be this big thing. And then, belong to us. And I was just like, this is weird that like a hobby thing that I was trying to do garnered that. I think that's awesome. And I was very appreciative of it. But I was like, man, I'm going to just go out on a limb here and not do that. And it's just going to be super indie. And it's super like, I love it because I can just interview anyone I want. Like, you know what that's like. You can interview whomever you want and talk about whatever you want. And when things get weird, like when COVID hit, I went out and started talking daily and just talking into the mic and just trying to like make some sense of it.
Yeah.
When George Floyd was murdered in front of all of us, had plenty that we could say and talk about. And I don't know if you could do that if you had someone that you were beholden to, some corporate situation, no matter how cool they were. And so got to talk to a lot of interesting people, like Olin Douglas comes to mind. I just interviewed him a few weeks ago. So the podcast is Your First Million. I interview people about their first million. Usually it's about their first $1 million, whether it's their company or them personally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like your first 1 million downloads or your first 1 million.
Oh, that's cool.
Books sold, things like that.
That's cool.
And Olin Douglas is a Black man who has a $150 million fund called the Motley Fool. And it's like an offshoot of a fintech company or a wealth management company. And he just has an amazing story talking about like, the last 20 years of his life and how he built that. And it's just it's so interesting to me, those kinds of stories. And so to highlight him was really exciting. And then, people like Ellen Pompeo, who's the most well-paid woman in drama on television, $20 million a year contract plus extra points ish, here and there. And to be able to have that conversation, and she was just so real. And so it was just incredibly refreshing. Anybody who's ever read anything she's ever said won't be surprised that she was real, but just to double down on saying the things that she says and having her position where she has so much to lose is really interesting. And that's what happens. I think, this is my opinion, I think this is what happens when you have Black children. Ellen Pompeo is the only white person, one white person in her family, in her household.
Yeah. And
so she has a lot to think about her place in the world. And so she says it like it is. And anyway, had those conversations, released maybe once every couple of weeks, I think is like a full-on episode. And sometimes I'll just jump on and talk to you. But before that, I had the Bootstrapped VC, which is a couple of years that came out of Backstage, and that was really fun. You can still find that on an archive, and it's just a lot of fun. Bootstrapped VC. And then my courses at arlanwashere.teachable.com. And there are about 500 students in that full course. If you go to the same URL, but put a /courses with an S to it, it'll show you more courses, including a fast track version where there are about 4,000 students in the fast track version.
That's amazing. So before we wrap, I want to make sure we talk about your new syndicate, Backstage Crowd. So first of all, just if you would, because I know that there are going to be listeners and viewers who don't even know what a syndicate is.
Sure.
Could you just break down what a syndicate is, and then let's talk about what makes Backstage Crowd special?
So right now I have Backstage Capital, and I run that with a team, and we take on other people's capital and then invest that into companies. And when we make that money back from those companies having some sort of event like being sold or something like that, then we share in the profits that are made from that. That's kind of like a regular fund structure. A syndicate, you may have heard of like an angel list, like we talked about earlier. You may have heard of just the term in general. In this case, what it means is that there's this little vehicle, it's called a special purpose vehicle, SPV, sometimes it's referred to, where it's just an LLC essentially, where you can instead of it being just my fund or just a couple of people, it can be up to 250 individuals who invest a smaller amount of money into one company. And together, that pooled amount is invested in the company as one person. So think about it like, let's say a company is raising a total of $1 million. Mm-hmm. And Backstage or I personally have an allocation, like the founder said, I like you, I'll give you 100K of that. You can invest 100K of that. And I say, well, I only have 25,000 to invest, so I don't think I can do the whole 100. Let me go to my syndicate, see if there are 75 people who want to put 1,000 in and turn it into 100K. And then what's really great for the founder is that it only looks like one entity on their cap table, on their list of investors. So they don't have to deal with 76 people. They have to deal with one person or two people, one who manages the syndicate, one who's side by side with it. So that's at backstagecrowd.com. Now you have to be accredited in order to be part of what I just described. And you are accredited in the United States automatically, if you make $200,000 per year or more as an individual, or $300,000 when you combine you and your spouse, the income, or you have $1 million or more in assets and worth, not including your main home that you live in. So that sounds like it's unattainable, and it really, in some cases, it is. And I'll tell you in a second what we're trying to do about that. But if you think about it, there are a lot of engineers and a lot of lawyers, a lot of doctors, and a lot of people who aren't in that world, in the VC world, and investing world, who do qualify for that. And a lot of people, it really does open up and break barriers for underrepresented people to be able to invest, and for everyone to be able to invest in underrepresented, underestimated founders. So it's really democratizing in a way. And we also take, if you don't qualify as accredited as what the SEC says accredited is today, we also have a track for that. So you go to backstagecrowd.com, you say in the pull down menu, I'm non-accredited or I'm unsure, and then you get sent deals that we do on public sites like republic.co or WeFunder or Seed Invest, where you get to invest because of the Jobs Act, but you're not accredited. And it's just like, it's almost the same thing. It's just certain ones. So the whole idea is to democratize and to make it more accessible. The current definition of accredited investor that I just described to you is something that we did not put in place. It's something that the government put in place, SEC put in place, regulations. But there are a lot of people, and a lot of them being Black investors, who are fed up with that definition, and who have been over time saying that definition needs to change. It needs to either be lowered to 100,000 or 50,000, or it needs to be eradicated altogether. And they and I, in our different ways, are little by little cracking that and getting that. And the SEC is looking at it. Now, COVID threw them off a little bit.
Yeah.
They were looking at it real hardcore in January, and then things got weird. But now they're back to looking at it more carefully and saying, what are the pros and cons of doing this? So I'll say this really quickly. The reason they have this in place, they say, is because they're trying to protect people from spending too much money on investing.
Yep.
But to me, as long as you can go to Vegas, or as long as you can buy $1,000 worth of lottery tickets and not have this protection, quote unquote, around you, that doesn't hold water to me and to a lot of other people. And the idea that somebody I wasn't accredited until like a year and a half ago or something. And to think that someone like us, who are making investment decisions for other people, or who is like, what if you're a professor of finance, or you're this or you're that? If you can't put $1,000 into a syndicate deal of a company that's like a new health tech company that you know something about, like you understand it, but you can go right down to the gas station in most states and buy, just give me as many of lottery tickets as you can.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, the point is, go to backstagecrowd.com, and as we will follow the guidelines that are in place until they change. And either way, you have a gateway into working with Backstage Capital.
So that's an incredible way to end. And I feel like we should put a pin in the calendar 6 months down the road to follow up on that topic, because you could do a whole show. You could do a whole show on that topic, right?
That's right.
For sure. Arlan, I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you're very, very busy. Thank you so much for being here on the show today. Everybody out there, follow Arlan. I'm just about to pull up all these visuals. It's aboutdamntime.com, backstagecrowd.com. Arlan was here on Instagram, on Twitter. Look, as you can see, incredibly inspirational, full of great information as well. It doesn't just stop at information like you can do it. Then it's like how to do it, right? Yep. How to do it. Courses, books, pathways to invest. She's opening up the channel, so you gotta take the time and follow this woman. The book, Create and Orchestrate, in stores now. Everyone go grab it. The podcast, Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, everywhere that you subscribe to and listen to podcasts. And you can follow me everywhere online at Marcus Whitney. That's it. I'll be back on Friday with another episode of Marcus Whitney Live. And until then, let's build the new normal, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe.